Hi yogis. We'll do something a little bit different today. So I had some requests for working the back a little bit. We're going to do some poses that will help strengthen and stretch the area of the hips, the low back. We're all probably doing more sitting than we're used to lately. So that's what we're going to address. It'll be a little bit more of an active practice today. We'll start standing, we'll come to the floor for a few more stretches, and then we will still finish with some breath work, and then I'll have a final quote for you to share. I'm going to use a couple of props. If you have a yoga block at home, great. If not, I'm going to be substituting some household things. In this case, my college yearbook. So this has a bit of thickness to it. If you have something a little thicker than this, like a yoga block, as long as it's sturdy, you can use that also. We're going to be standing on it. That's all you need. When we come down to the floor, you can have something less sturdy with a little bit of height. In my case, I have a little storage thing that's about, well, this is a thin yoga block, so it's about the same size as my thicker yoga block. There you go. But I'll use this so you can see you don't really need that. You can use one prop for everything. So you'll see what we're going to do. So I'm going to be moving around a little bit more in this video when I stand up. Hopefully my head won't get cut off, but you really just need to see my feet. So if it does, hopefully you can still hear me and bear with me. So take your little bit of a height, whatever that is for you, and then come to standing. I'm going to step away a little more. Place your thing on the floor. And step up with one foot. I'll try moving back a little more. I want you to still be able to hear me. So when you step up on your item, you're going to allow your other foot to hover off the floor. You're going to try to have your hips stay relatively level. So you can touch the front hip points. This is your ASIS. And see if you can make them not a little more jagged, but more level. So we'll be here about a minute. One way I tell my students that they can gauge time and poses at home, rather than having to look at the clock, is to count your breaths. So if you count the number of breaths that for you is about 30 seconds, then you can time your poses 30 seconds, a minute, etc. So we're going to start now. Count each cycle in, each out. So in, out, that would be 1. It doesn't matter what the count is. We're just looking to go to see how many natural breaths you take in 30 seconds. You might find your breath being a little bit more labored as we hold this a little longer. You have about 8 more seconds. And then stop counting, step off your item, give your hips a little wiggle, shake them out any way you need to, and we'll step up on the other side. So you can certainly do this on a height that is a little higher, as I said, a block, as long as it's sturdy, a fatter book if you have it. You might have felt the muscles start to kick in on the outer hip, the outer thigh area, maybe even the glute muscles for you. Plus, this is a great exercise to bring a little bit of balance in our lives during this time that's so unbalanced. One of the things that probably got lost this week was that we had the first day of spring, a time of the vernal equinox when day and night is equal. So this is a really nice time to practice balance. We have about 15 more seconds or so. I admit I'm not timing these exactly, but I'm giving it a shot. Take one more breath here and come off. Another wiggle. We're going to go back to the first side, whatever that is for you. I'm going to turn my yearbook sideways. Step back on it. Find your even hover again. And this time we're going to bend the knee that is on your object, looking down to see that the knee comes more toward the middle of your foot as you bend. Touch down the heel of the other foot and lift back up. And continue to do that You don't have to keep looking down, it might be harder, but you want your knee to go toward the middle rather than, I'll show you what we don't want, to collapse more in, or for some of you, maybe even more out. So we kind of want to keep the knee going forward. We're going to do about 8 to 10 of these. I don't know if you were counting. I was kind of half counting. I think this is about 8 for me, so I'll do 2 more. I can feel, for me, the outer hip really kicking in. Okay, let that go. Again, shake it out a little bit. All right, last standing thing. Other side. Adjust as you need to. Come into your hover first, and then start lowering so your heel just lightly touches the ground. Especially if you're on a relatively low standing thing like I am, you don't want to allow yourself to come all the way down and release. If you're on a higher thing, a block or something else, you might barely touch the ground. And we're just touching like that. You might wobble. There's a little wobble for me. And that was about 6, so let's do 4 more. And remember, you can glance down at the knee on this side. Make sure it's going somewhere in the middle of the toes. You feel some strength work. And I think 1 more after this one. 1 more. Okay. So we'll come down to the floor. Hopefully it'll be a little easier for you to see and hear me on the floor. And I'm going to keep my yearbook. So a little bit of a low prop, nothing too high. Again, if you want to use a block, you don't want to use the less sturdy thing. Like I'm not going to use my storage container here, but I might use it in a minute. The yearbook is going to go to support under my sacrum, under my hips. We did this when we did our supported bridge pose. So you'll see what this looks like once I lie down. I'm gonna come down, help myself down to my back. You can rock down, you can place your hands behind your thighs and help yourself with a little bit of a rock. And then you'll come down, if you're using the prop under your hips, just slide it under. You can use a blanket too, probably more comfortable than a yearbook. And then once you get here, draw your knees in toward your chest. You don't have to hold them. You can hold your thighs, the tops of your knees, behind your knees, anywhere that's comfortable for you. I think I'll hold on the tops of my knees. As I breathe in, I'll move my knees away from me, expanding in the torso. And as I exhale, I'll contract, maybe even lift my tailbone a little bit off the floor or my prop. And I'll do a few rounds of this wave breath, breathing in, exhaling, contracting. See if you can feel some movement in your low back. Maybe a little bit of an openness to some of the muscles there. And if you'd like, you can widen this. A little bit of a different movement with your knees. See how that feels differently in your hips. Continuing to connect the movement with breath all the while. Staying aware of your breath. And maybe a little bit of circles. Go around. Doesn't have to be any particular shape. We're bringing some movement into the hip joints. Eventually then hold one knee in. I'm going to hold the one in closer to the camera to start. Stretch the other leg out any amount. So it may come to here. Maybe you're able to stretch it out more. Whatever feels right. Hold this knee in. And I can't see my clock anymore. I'm going to hold it in and I'll count to 20. So maybe we'll have about 30 seconds all together. I'm going to count in my head. Breathe. All right, so that was probably about 30 seconds. Take the knee with your opposite hand. You can stretch this arm out if it feels good. And then draw the knee a little bit more into the center. So I'm not coming into a twist. I'm not lifting my hip, just drawing it in more so that it hovers more over the middle of my torso, more toward the other hip. And it's a gentle pull. I'm not tugging it. You can hold your thigh if that feels better, under your knee. I like to think that yoga doesn't have a lot of rules. The only rule is to practice in a way that feels best in your body. And every body is different. So let's take 1 or 2 more breaths on this side, feeling if the change in the direction of the movement maybe change the stretch or openness for you at all. And then draw your opposite leg in to meet the first. So both legs move around a little bit. And whenever you're ready, hold the second leg in, stretch the left leg out. Well, it's my left leg, whatever leg it is for you on the second side. Remembering that it can be a little bit or a lot. So hold here with a little bit of pressure, and you can see how it feels to use your hands to pull in while you isometrically push away with your leg. That will engage your muscles a little bit more. And in fact, as I do that, as I pull gently in with my hands and push my shin, in this case, into my hands, I actually feel it in the hip flexor of my opposite leg, my leg that's straight. And the hip flexors can get tight, again, from a lot of the sitting that we do, and stretch into and cause pain in the lower back. So when that's been about 30 seconds, we're now going to draw this knee a little bit to the midline, not so much that the hip lifts. The hip of the knee that's bent stays down toward the floor. And we'll breathe here. So holding adds the pressure of your hand to the pressure of your leg. You don't have to hold. If that's not comfortable, you can move your leg around just with the muscle action. Let's take 1 more breath. Okay. Bring both knees in 1 more time. A little bit of stretching or rolling. Place the feet flat on the floor. Slide your low prop out from under your back. I'm going to sit up for a second. So here's where, if you want to use another prop, if you have a yoga block or something else a little bit higher, again, I'm going to use this little container. You're not going to be putting weight on it. You're just going to be resting a foot there. So this is completely optional, but will make these poses a little bit more restful. I'm going to put this down about where my bottom foot would be. In fact, I can roll down with my foot right on it. Slide a little bit more away so you can see that. So I have both my knees bent, but my one foot is resting on that little bit of support so you can see how it's higher. I'm going to draw my other knee in, place my ankle over the knee, and move the knee away. So it's my left knee or left foot that's on the support. My right knee is bent and moving away. This pose is called reclined figure 4. Sometimes it's called reclined pigeon. It's a stretch for the outer hips, so you may feel it somewhere in your outer hips, but again, everybody feels things differently. Everybody experiences poses differently. You can place your hand on the outside of the thigh or the knee of the top leg. Just gently encourage that knee to move away from you. So I'm not giving it a big tug. I'm gently encouraging it to move away. Again, you can do that just with the muscular action. My foot is slightly flexed, so it's engaged rather than kind of flopping all over the place. Now you can hold these poses longer. I'm approximating that we're holding anywhere between 30 seconds and about a minute. I want to keep this video a reasonable length that you can do in a relatively short amount of time. But once you get the sense of this routine, yeah, you can hold longer if it feels good, or pick the poses that feel good and hold those a little longer. So we'll take this into a twist. So I'm going to keep my legs in this shape. I'm going to come off the prop though. In fact, I'm going to grab it and slide it over to the side. It's going to come out of camera range, but it's to the outside of my left hip. And again, my left foot is the one that's on the floor. And I'm going to start moving my figure four or my pigeon legs toward you, toward the camera, until my foot comes down to this prop and just stays there. Now you don't need to move the prop for this. I think it's nice to get this little extra support. I can have my hand right on this prop and drag it a little bit up. Maybe you even are able to hold your leg or your foot. Maybe not. Maybe yours is down further away from you. And I'm stretching my arms out into a T shape. They can also come more of a cactus or a goalpost shape. I'm obviously looking at you, looking at the camera, but if you're just listening to me, I would encourage you to have your head face the ceiling. And you can play around with the direction of your head. Maybe it feels good to roll your neck back and forth. So you're welcome to do that, or if you hold your neck for maybe 15 seconds on one side, maybe then it feels good to stretch it 15 seconds toward the other. Okay, let's take one more breath in this pose on this side. And moving with your breath, you can stay in this shape or not as you bring your legs back and then release. Take your feet a little bit wide. If you're using a mat, it may be about mat width. My mat is a big square or a big rectangle, so that's not really it for me. And windshield wiper your knees gently side to side. I'm moving my prop out of the way now so I can get a little motion. Notice how this feels after we've just done one side. And as you do this on your own, I'll just show you this. I'm not going to hold here today. As you go to one side, you can stay there, maybe place the ankle on top of the knee to get a little bit more stretch. Maybe reach away with the opposite arm. And then same on the other side. Drop the knees to the other side. Place the ankle on top of the knee or the thigh, adding to the stretch. That's completely optional. So we'll go to the second side. I've got my little prop. This has my little massage balls in it. Rubber pinky balls are a great thing. Yoga therapy balls, all great little massage balls. So this time this is going to be under my right foot. You might be able to see it a little better on this side. It's a little bit away from my bottom. My foot is, or my knee is bent as a comfortable degree. Lifting my left, turning the knee out. So I'm getting an external rotation of my hip as I turn the knee out. Resting the ankle on top of that other knee and adjusting as needed. I feel like this needs to be a little further away. You can rest your hands on your thighs out to your side. Again, you can place the one hand on the outside of the inside of the thigh or the knee of the top leg and encourage a gentle movement away from your body. Sometimes in class, I like to keep with that movement, bringing the knee in and out, moving with the breath. So we can stay still in yoga poses. There's definitely an advantage to doing that. And there's also an advantage to getting movement, looking for mobility in our joints. I'll hold out for about 3 more breaths. Your own breaths may definitely be faster or slower than mine, so don't worry if you took 5 breaths when I said 3 or 2. Last one. And then I'll step my foot off so that I can slide my prop over to, this time is on my right side, so the side that's away from you. As I turn my legs in this position, my foot finds the prop or not. It can come to the floor if that works for you. And then I'm stretching out my arms. Ooh, so this hip has been giving me a little more trouble, and I definitely feel it a little bit more on this side. For me, though, it feels kind of like a nice, juicy stretch. I hope it feels that way for you, too. Breathe. Even if I don't cue you to breathe, obviously you should still be doing it. Taking the time to find your breath, notice your breath, enjoy the breath. Release whatever parts are not working. So your forehead, face does not have to work here. Your upper body does not have to work. How can you soften those other places that aren't engaged like this lower half is? So 1 or 2 more breaths. Nice. And then we'll come back through to center. I'm going to move my little prop out of the way. Again, take your feet, both feet flat on the floor. A few windshield wipers from side to side. Does anything feel different now than when you had just done the one side? You could do something like this at the start of your practice as well as almost a little pre-test. Breathing here. And as I said before, you can hold to one side or the other. But for now, I'm going to come to the side closest to you, roll my body in that direction, use my hands to help myself up. Come up to any comfortable seated position for our breath practice. Mainly so you can see me a little better, I'm going to sit on a block. I'm going to be on my knees in hero or thunderbolt pose. You can sit however works for you. I'm going to fix my hair as we're talking. So we're going to practice a breathing practice called alternate nostril breathing. I'm going to actually sit up on the second block so I'm even a little higher so you can see me even a little better. There we go. Okay, so alternate nostril breathing is breathing with what it sounds like. It's breathing through one nostril and then the other. We sort of do that naturally throughout the day without realizing it. So this is bringing a little bit more of an intention to that, intention to our breath. It's designed to balance the breath from one side of the body, one hemisphere to the other. And again, since we've just had the vernal equinox, as we move into spring, and as we move into or we continue with this unbalanced time, seeking a little balance can be helpful. So it's usually taught by, this is my right hand, it might look like my left is my right. It's usually taught by taking the, what's called the peace fingers, right? Taking those 2 fingers in toward your palm, in toward your palm, and then using this one hand, the outer thumb, and then the ring finger to gently close either side of the nostril. You can do it that way, and if you're familiar with this breath, go ahead. I'm going to teach it a little bit more simply for today, and I'm just going to use either index finger on either side of the nostril. So I'll talk you through it. I'll talk you through a few rounds and then have you practice a few rounds on your own. If you don't get it, if it doesn't make sense, if you don't like it, simply cultivate an even breath in, even breath out. And we're going to start with that. So notice your breath. You might put a hand on your body as you notice the flow of the breath in. Notice the flow of the breath out. So this is a rich, rewarding practice of noticing the breath and cultivating an even breath in and even breath out. If that's your breath practice for today, perfect. You don't have to take it any differently than that. If you'd like to try something else, if you've never done alternate nostril breathing and you want to give it a shot, okay, we can do that. Again, I'm just going to use the fingertips of each hand. So take a natural, normal breath in, and then gently, with your right hand, close the outside of your right nostril as you breathe out through the left. Breathe back in through the left. Close that nostril. Breathe out through the right. Back in through the right. Close out through the left. We'll continue that pattern in through the left. Close, you'll notice a slight pause. Lift the other out through the right. In through the right. Close, pause, out through the left. In through the left. Close, out through the right. I'll take you through one more doing it with you, and then I'll just talk. In through the right. Close right, out through the left. In through the left. Close left, out through the right. So again, you continue in through the right. Close right, out through the left. In through the left. Close left, out through the right. In through the right. Close right, out through the left. In through the left. Close, out through the right. And then the last time in through the right, and end with your exhale out through the left. Once you've done that, release your hands. Place your hands on your lap, returning to your own natural breath. Explore any effects in your body of this breathing that we did for just a very brief period of time. If it felt good to you, once you get the hang of it, you might want to practice longer on your own. Okay, so I'm going to finish today with a reading. That means reading glasses. This one is not as long as the other readings I've done. This is just a quote. I always like to finish my yoga classes with quotes because I'm a psychologist. In addition to being a yoga teacher, I emphasize the mind-body connection in my classes. And so I feel like themes and quotes are one way to cultivate that. So this is from a yoga teacher, Rodney Yee. Any of you have done yoga videos, DVDs, might know of Rodney Yee. He's pretty well known in America. He's one of the first yogis I practiced with before I ever went to a studio. I practiced yoga using videos at home, and Rodney Yee is still one of my favorites. I'd like to practice with him in person someday. So here's his quote. "The practice is simply this. Keep coming back to your breath during the day. Just take a moment. This will give your mind a steadiness and your breath a gracefulness. There's so much to let go of, isn't there? Your nostalgia and your regrets, your fantasies and your fears, what you think you want instead of what is happening right now. Breathe." So yes, right now, there's a lot of things in life that we have to let go of, that we have to let be as we struggle to deal with this crisis, to cope, to make sense. And yet we can simply be with this present moment, to breathe, to be here with each other. Finish with Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti Om. Peace, peace, peace. Thank you for being with me. Be well, and I hope to see you again soon.